That's the future. Now, I want to give you the background a little bit. After Nebuchadnezzar woke up with this dream, he knew this was not a dream from eating too much camel steak. This dream was something that had a tremendous impact on his mind. He knew there was a meaning to it. He called together all of his wise men and his counselors, the astrologers and the prophets in his kingdom, the psychics. And he said, tell me, I've had a dream, and I need to know what it means. And they said, okay, tell us the dream, and we'll tell you the interpretation. Well, these so-called wise men were on the king's payroll, and they had a habit of conjuring up fanciful prophecies that were usually very flattering for the king to help him get promotions and pay raises. And the king said, you know, I've had this dream and it's beginning already to fail. Any of you have a dream and it shocks you and just a few hours later it's becoming unclear, the details? And he said, you claim to be prophets. I want to know what the meaning of this dream is. If you're a real prophet, you tell me what the dream is, and then I'll know you can tell me the interpretation. Well, they began to squirm. And they said, well, that's a little unreasonable. I mean, yes, we've got special gifts, but that's asking too much. And the king was aggravated because he was suspicious that these prophets were counterfeits. He said, you can tell me the dream or you're in big trouble. Question number 2. When the king's counselors failed to reveal and interpret the dream, what was Nebuchadnezzar's command? Answer: the king commanded to, say it with me, destroy all of the wise men in Babylon. Now, we need to pause at this point and back up and give you a little bit of history. You see, a few years earlier, Nebuchadnezzar had conquered Jerusalem. The temple had been burnt, and just a little before he did that, he carried away a number of captives from Jerusalem back to Babylon, where they settled for about 70 years. Among those captives were 4 young men who were of royal descent. Their names were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were trained in the Babylonian palace. They were allowed to eat from the royal cafeteria, and they were being groomed to be ambassadors and counselors and ultimately wise men for Nebuchadnezzar. They had been chosen for their brightness. Well, when the king gave the decree that all of the wise men should be destroyed, because Daniel and his 3 friends were so young, they weren't invited at that point. Now let's go to question number 3 with that background. When Daniel learned about the death decree, what did he ask of the king, and what did he tell his friends? The answer? It tells us, Daniel went in, and he desired of the king that he would give him time. Why? That he could show the king the interpretation. He said, you haven't invited us, we knew nothing about this, give us a little time. And I think Daniel may have even put a limit on it. Maybe the king said, you've got 24 hours. What did Daniel do after that? You can bet that he and his friends had a very intense prayer meeting. It says here, then Daniel went to his house, and he made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions. And they asked something specific, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret. This was something that only God could reveal to them. Suppose that you had to dream my dream tomorrow, or you were going to die. Well, that's a lot of pressure. You'd be on your knees, wouldn't you? And that's what happened to them back then. Question number 4. When the Lord revealed the dream to Daniel, to whom did he give praise and credit? Now, this is very important. This is one of the characteristics of God's prophets. They give the glory and the credit to God. Answer? Daniel said, I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers. There is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets. God revealed the secret. He gave him the credit. Question number 5. We're moving right along here because we've got a lot of interesting history we're going to cover. What 2 objects did Daniel say that the king saw in his dream? There were 2 specific things that were different. What were they? First of all, thou, O king, sawest and behold a what? A great image. This colossal image that was gold and silver and bronze and iron and miry clay was an idol. And you know what the Bible says about idols? It represented the pagan religions of the world. And it represented all the false and the counterfeit methods of truth in the world. Answer to the second part, thou sawest till a a stone was cut without hands. Now that stone that is cut without hands, there's something supernatural about the stone. We'll find out more about that later. Question number 6. What does the head of gold represent? Let's go right now into the interpretation of what these different materials are in the dream. Daniel told the king, "Thou art this head of gold." Daniel said that King Nebuchadnezzar, and in particular the kingdom of Babylon, that was the head of gold. Babylon was one of the most glorious kingdoms of antiquity. One historian tells us it was 15 miles on each side, making it 60 miles in circumference. That's, you could put all of Manhattan right snugly inside of that. The walls of the city were over 65 feet wide at the bottom and 55 feet wide at the top. And Herodotus says that you could ride 4 chariots abreast around the city on top of the walls. The river Euphrates ran underneath the city. And that's very interesting. Don't forget that, friends. When you come to Revelation, one of the plagues talks about the Euphrates River drying up. It's very significant that you know that. The Euphrates River irrigated the city. It ran under the walls, through the city, and out the other side, and they used that water, of course, to irrigate the Hanging Gardens. Not only that, it was a beautiful city. They had glazed blue and gold and purple tiles that mounted the walls in the palaces. And so here, Babylon was symbolized as this head of gold. Number 7, would the kingdom of Babylon last forever? Well, how long did the gold last? It is followed now by another material. No, it says, after thee shall another kingdom arise inferior to thee, just as silver is inferior to gold. Now, how did Babylon fall? First of all, Nebuchadnezzar did not think that this was going to happen. In their archaeology and their research, they've dug up some tablets and some bricks where Nebuchadnezzar stamped with his own seal, and he said that he wanted the kingdom of Babylon to last forever. Babylon, this city, which is the delight of my eyes, which I have glorified, Nebuchadnezzar wrote, may it last forever. But kingdoms rise and kingdoms fall, and it was not destined to last forever. Babylon lasted from about 605 BC to 539 BC. There's some details in history so we can know how it fell. As a matter of fact, the book of Daniel tells the history. Daniel was there when Babylon fell. Chapter 5 of Daniel tells about this wild party Nebuchadnezzar's grandson Belshazzar had. Nabonidus, Belshazzar's father, Nebuchadnezzar's son, was off fighting battles somewhere else. And his son was all of a sudden in charge of the city. Kind of pronounced himself king in place of his father while his father was away. They had a wild party. In spite of the fact that the Medo-Persian army had now marched against Babylon, young Belshazzar said, "We're not afraid. They'll never get through the walls." One historian tells us they had 20 years worth of grain stored away in their silos. They had water running under the walls. He thought, we've got food, we've got water, we can withstand a siege of 20 years. So they had a wild party. Someone else says the banquet hall of Babylon was a mile long. Do you know how long a mile is? They had peacocks pulling little chariots with beverages for the people. All the elite in the kingdom were invited to this massive banquet that King Belshazzar had for all of his lords. And he became very pompous as he drank. And he said, my grandfather conquered the people of Judea, and he carried away all the sacred vessels from their God and from their temple. Let's bring those sacred vessels, their cups and bowls out. Let's pour our wine into it, and let's toast our gods, because our gods are bigger than the God Jehovah of Israel. And he began to mock the God of heaven and drink to the gods of gold and silver and stone and wood. And as he was mocking God, suddenly a hand appeared and began to write in burning letters on the wall over by a lamp. And you know what it said? It said, the party's over. That's not exactly what it says, but in essence, that's what it said. That handwriting was written a cryptic message, mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. And again, now young Belshazzar, he calls for all of the wise men and the psychics to come, and he dials the hotline. He says, what does this mean? These flaming letters are up there on the wall, and his knees were shaking together, the Bible tells us. And they said, we don't know what it means. And he proclaimed